Incredible police dog reveals hidden truth behind little girl's 3-year struggle with pain. The news hit Maplewood like a thunderclap. An incredible police dog named Max had uncovered a shocking truth that could change everything for the Johnson family. For 3 long years, they had watched their 7-year-old daughter, Lily, suffer in silence. Each visit to the doctor felt like a twisted quest for answers that never came. The Johnsons were drowning in medical bills while their community seemed to turn away, branding them as victims instead of offering support. But now, with Max's uncanny nose for the truth, hope flickered in the darkness. As the efforts to raise awareness began, the air buzzed with whispers of disbelief and concern. A little girl in constant pain. A family on the brink of despair. The townsfolk remembered the Johnsons as the hardworking couple who always lent a hand helping neighbors, volunteering time, but now they felt isolated, their laughter replaced with hushed conversations. Their modest home sat on Maple Street, where the cheerful flowers once bloomed in the sun. Nowadays, the garden looked weary, just like the Johnsons. They fought valiantly for Lily, learning about countless medications and rituals, but each small victory was crushed under the weight of doubt. Just another case of attention-seeking, they'd hear behind closed doors. Lily's bright smile was tempered by the relentless pain, and no one seemed able to understand that. Then came the day of the community event, a cherished tradition meant to raise funds for families in need. Here, Max, the once great police dog, sat quietly at his handler's feet. With graying fur and eyes that still held a spark, he watched the people around him. Something was gnawing at his instincts like a fading memory clawing back into focus. He longed for purpose, a mission to feel needed again. In the heat of the gathering, as laughter and chatter filled the air, Max's nose twitched. The scent of a familiar chemical lingered, taking him back to the days spent sniffing out trouble. And there was Lily, playing in the grass, joy radiating from her despite the shadow of her illness. Without thinking, Max bolted towards her, drawn to the connection he instinctively sensed. Just then, in a scene that felt almost cinematic, the scent intensified. Max whined, pawing at the ground where thick roots twisted under the earth. The townsfolk froze as the wise old dog began digging, revealing remnants of toxic waste buried deep, a haunting reminder of Maplewood's industrial legacy. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Gasps echoed through the crowd as the shocking discovery unraveled the truth about Lily's condition. This rare allergy wasn't just a coincidence, it was tied to the very soil that Maplewood had thrived upon. You could feel the air shift, a collective remembrance of unity buried beneath skepticism. The Johnsons, worn thin but resolute, clung to each other as tears of both fear and hope streamed down their faces. The weight of indifference that had hung over Maplewood was suddenly lifted, if only slightly. But as support surged, shadows still loomed. Doubts remained. Old prejudices whispered in corners, questioning how far they could truly go to help a family they had once overlooked. As Lily squeezed her parents' hands tightly, a sense of solidarity began to brew. In that moment of raw potential, both Max and the Johnsons stood at a crossroads. But uncertainty still lingered. Was the town ready to confront its past and embrace the fight for Lily's future? With so many questions left unanswered, hope battled against the tide of a dark history. Would Maplewood find the strength to unite, or would they let fear and judgment eclipse the realities of pain? The atmosphere crackled with mixed emotions as the townsfolk gathered closer, eyes wide in disbelief, mouths agape. People whispered urgently among themselves, and a wave of empathy began to ripple through the crowd. A few stepped forward, visibly moved by the revelation of toxicity lurking beneath their feet, now threatening a little girl they had so easily dismissed. "We can't let this go on," someone shouted, breaking the fragile silence. A wave of agreement surged as others echoed the sentiment, spurred on by the hidden truth unveiled before them. The Johnsons remained locked in their own embrace, each squeezed hand signaling shared hope, fear, and determination. Max paused from digging, standing at attention, and looked up at Lily. She smiled back, a glimmer of childlike innocence blooming amidst the chaos around her. In that moment, the world seemed to disappear, the noise faded, and all that mattered was the connection between the dog and the girl he had instinctively rushed to help. As the crowd began to formulate plans, ideas buzzed in the air. Someone suggested organizing a cleanup, others proposed pushing for testing of local land, all spurred by Max's bravery. But beneath their excitement, doubts still flickered like shadows. Could they really rally against a hidden enemy that lay deep within the community they loved? What could they do to change a narrative that had been years in the making? Mark Johnson broke away from his wife and daughter, driven by adrenaline. He called out, "We need volunteers. Let us gather everyone's strength. We can't let Lily suffer any longer." A few people began clapping, gradually turning into a full-blown round of applause echoing through Maplewood. It was the first sign of wild hope that many had felt all day. The tide was shifting, and the air was charged with determination. But somewhere in the back of Mark's mind, he couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension. As much as people wanted to come together, what were they really willing to fight against? Beside him, Clara Johnson held Lily close, whispering reassurances. Her heart was a steady drum, but doubts crept in. Would neighbors, previously indifferent, now see the urgency of change? Was it too late for forgiveness? She wished for Lily's pain to evaporate like the summer heat, but the scars of the past seemed too entrenched. By evening, groups had formed around the town square, and plans started to crystallize into action. Flyers were distributed, committees were formed, and soon a march was organized to bring awareness to the hazardous conditions hiding in plain sight. They all bore a common goal: protecting Lily and uncovering the truth that had long been buried under apathy. Yet, as excitement filled the atmosphere, Max sensed another change. The once warm-hearted camaraderie began to fray at the seams. Old rivalries surfaced, whispers of fear spread like wildfire. What if they stumbled too deep and uncovered secrets that were never meant to be found? And with Lily there, a delicate flower amidst the thickening tension, the question arose, could the community really band together to face the buried truths, or would history repeat itself in new, destructive ways? As the dusk set in and street lamps flickered on, illuminating the fervor in the air, a spark of uncertainty ignited among the Johnsons. The battle was just beginning. Would they find the courage to stand united in the quest for justice? What dark secrets still lay hidden beneath Maplewood's surface? The night descended like a heavy blanket over Maplewood, but the fervor of the day still crackled in the air. Street lamps cast soft pools of light, illuminating the faces that now echoed determination rather than disbelief. Mark and Clara Johnson stood at the heart of the gathering, their fingers interlocked. Yet, even in the warmth of togetherness, an undercurrent of anxiety lingered. As people rallied, Mark's mind raced. He was grateful for the support, but what if this wasn't just about saving Lily? What if digging deeper into the town's soil unearthed more than they ever anticipated? His heart sank at the thought. Clara sensed his turmoil and leaned in closer. "Whatever it takes," she whispered, "we will face it together." It was a small reassurance against the looming questions. Nearby, a group of teenagers began folding flyers, brightly painted papers promising change. Some adults stepped forward, once passive onlookers, now warriors of their community. "We owe it to Lily," one man declared. The idea of unity took flight, transforming fear into action. Yet, Max, still agitated, darted through the crowd, as if he sensed a storm brewing. Minutes turned to hours as plans became motions. A drum of commitment echoed along the streets, drowning out earlier doubts. A march was scheduled for the following Saturday. Banners were designed, chants were created, and every single soul felt part of something larger. But with all this newfound energy came whispers beginning to swell, shadows lurking in corners. Mark caught snippets of conversations that didn't sound supportive. "Fools," one voice sneered. "Who knows what they're?" He turned toward Clara, anxiety pinching his chest. The community had always been a close-knit tapestry, but now delicate threads were starting to fray, unearthed by old grievances and long-held resentments. A few days passed, and the air grew thick with anticipation, yet beneath it lay a sparking tension. Nightly room discussions among neighbors oscillated between optimism and trepidation. Clara shared her fears with Mark, and he with her, piecing together the past they had all tried to escape. They recounted moments when the town had overlooked issues, choosing to ignore what lurked in their own shadows. Finally, as they prepared for the march, Lily looked up at her parents. "Is everyone going to be okay?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. The innocence in her question twisted Clara's heart. She wanted to assure her, to promise everything would be fine, but truth hung heavy like smoke. Max, however, sensed her tension and padded closer, nuzzling her calf. "It's okay, Max," Clara said softly, but the pup's response was clear, a bark that rang out across the yard, rallying everyone's spirits. The community needed this energy, this hope. On the morning of the march, the sky bloomed in radiant colors, but fear settled in like an uninvited guest. As they gathered, a palpable sense of anxiety rippled through the crowd. For every hand raised in determination, the skepticism seeped deeper into the fabric of Maplewood. Old rivals now stood face to face, and it was evident they would have to confront more than just the past buried underground. Would their united front be strong enough to break through the walls of distrust? Would they uncover the lies while still protecting the innocent? As the marchers stepped forward, a small figure appeared at the edge of the square, someone with a message that would change everything. A voice called out from the street, a familiar face, one that demanded attention. "I need to talk to you all," it said, and a hush spread like wildfire, quickly replacing the chants. The crowd shifted, eyes darting toward the voice. What secret would this stranger reveal? And would they be ready to face it? The stranger stepped into the light, and the restless crowd leaned in. Clara squinted, trying to make out the figure. Her heart raced. It was Lorraine, a former Maplewood resident who left town years ago. An uneasy energy shivered through the crowd. Mark's grip on Clara tightened, his eyes narrowing. Lorraine had once been one of them, a bright spark, before tragedy dimmed her spirit. Whispers followed her as she moved, and more than a few people shifted their weight, prepped to dismiss what she might say. But just as Clara thought to shield Lily from this spectacle, Lorraine raised her voice, steady despite the weight of her past. "Please. I know you're skeptical, but you need to listen," she urged, trying to connect with the crowd. Max, still perched protectively by Clara's side, let out a low growl, sensing something was amiss. Lorraine paused, her breath catching as she continued. "I've been looking for answers myself. I came back because I learned something." A heavy silence fell. The energy from moments before was replaced by tension, hope flickered uncertainly in the air. "What do you know?" a man shouted, his voice tough with doubt. "You left, didn't you?" the crowd murmured. Clara's heart sank. She felt the same ambivalence weighing down on Lorraine that had clung to them, the guilt of a town that had stayed quiet for too long. Yet, even amidst the rude interjections, Lorraine forged ahead, her tone now urgent. "I found this," she exclaimed, pulling a time-worn piece of paper from her jacket. The sunlight caught its edges, the faded ink telling tales of memories. The crowd leaned forward again, curiosity breaking through skepticism. "What's that?" Clara whispered to Mark, but he was already staring intently, the wheels in his mind turning. "It's a journal entry," Lorraine explained, holding the paper high. "Written by the last owner of the old Walters property, the one nobody talks about anymore. It's a map to something we all thought was lost." Gasps echoed among the crowd. The Walters property had been abandoned for decades, forgotten like a ghost. No one dared approach it. Old legends of buried secrets surrounded the place, but nobody believed in them anymore. It was a story meant to fade. "Max, stay close," Clara said softly, her sense of protective urgency rising. With the town's collective eyes fixed on Lorraine, her energy swelled, igniting. This could lead to Lily's answers. She called out, each word striking like fire. And so much more. We can't shove aside our past any longer. We need to uncover the pain buried beneath our feet. Suddenly, Clara felt unmoored, her heart pounding in disbelief. What if Lorraine was right? What if there was a connection, something hidden among the roots of their history? A truth waiting to be unearthed not just for Lily, but for all of them. As the crowd murmured, caught between fear and curiosity, Mark turned to Clara. "Do we trust her?" he asked. A wave of anxiety washed over her, stifling her breath. Clara glanced at the map, then at their daughter, who stood wide-eyed, innocent yet fiercely trusting. "We don't have a choice, do we?" she replied, knowing this may lead not just to revelations but to confrontations. The air throbbed with intensity. The march took on a new life as everyone began to organize themselves, murmurs turning into plans of exploration. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. What lay ahead was cloaked in uncertainty, but one thing was clear: the town would gather its courage, dig deeper, or risk losing sight of itself forever. As Lorraine started detailing what the map hinted at, Clara felt a chill run down her spine. Just as the crowd began to coalesce in purpose, the wind shifted, an uneasy rustling of leaves hinted at more than just the past. Clara caught a glimpse of something moving just beyond the tree line, a shadow lurking just out of view. "Do you see that?" she whispered to Mark, worry creeping back in. "Something tells me we're not alone," Mark replied, the intensity of his gaze locking onto the edge of the woods, what was lurking just beyond sight, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself? And would their newfound courage hold strong when faced with the truth? Clara's eyes darted to the trees, her instincts pulling her closer to Mark and Lily. The air felt charged, alive, as if the world was holding its breath. She could see the shadows shifting, dancing between the trunks, and her heart picked up pace. What could it be? Her mind raced, each possibility darker than the last. "Everyone, stay together!" Lorraine shouted, her voice trembling slightly but strong enough to grab attention. The crowd, still half-bound by disbelief, began to huddle, their prior bravado fading into uncertainty. Clara grasped Lily's hand tighter, trying to anchor her daughter against the tide of fear. "Max, find out what it is," Mark commanded, and the dog sprang into action, his muscles rippling beneath a thick coat of fur as he bounded toward the darkness at the tree line. The crowd gasped, eyes widening, their gazes flickering between the anxious parents and the vigilant dog. For a moment, silence enveloped them. Max's growls sliced through the quiet, a low warning that sent shivers through Clara's spine. She could feel the tension grow heavier, wrapping around her like a dark cloud. "Please be okay," Clara whispered, desperately hoping for the safety of her family, her community. As her heart raced, she turned back to Lorraine, who seemed transfixed by the unfolding scene. "What do you think is out there?" Clara asked, trembling. Lorraine shook her head, her expression torn between fear and determination. "I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that it's connected to the map, to what we've run from for so long," she replied. The crowd listened, their faces a mix of horror and curiosity. Suddenly, Max stopped, standing at attention, tail straight and focused. He barked sharply, and before anyone could react, something emerged from the trees. Clara's breath caught in her throat. A figure or a pack of them slipped into view. They were flickering, barely distinguishable. As they approached, clarity sank in. They were not monstrous creatures but children. Clara recognized them, kids from Maplewood who she hadn't seen in years. "Is that Tommy?" she gasped, spotting her neighbor's son amongst the group. Confusion washed over her. "What are they doing here?" The children looked equally bewildered, staring back at the adults with wide eyes. One of them, a girl with wild curls, stepped forward. We found the old property," she stammered, as if afraid of the reaction it would provoke. "We thought something might have been hidden there. Something important about Lily." Clara's heart raced again. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling now, caught between hope and fear. "We think there's more to the stories," the girl continued, glancing nervously at the map Lorraine still held. "We didn't want the grown-ups to get mad. But we saw things. Things you might want to see." The crowd shifted, a mix of intrigue and apprehension in their faces. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a summons to confront their darkest fears. The shadows deepened around them, the forest casting long fingers of doubt. Clara felt as though the night had summoned real demons, but she also sensed a flicker of hope rising. Could these children lead them back to the truth about the Walters property, about the pain that lay buried, just waiting to be unearthed? With the crowd's eyes now on the children, Clara took a step forward. "Show us," she urged softly but firmly. "Lead us to what you found. We can't hide any longer." As the kids nodded, another rustle echoed behind them. Clara turned sharply. There was something bigger than them lurking, shadows gathering as if they were alive. "What now?" she whispered, the words slipping from her lips with a mix of dread and anticipation. What had they awakened? Would they have the strength to face not only the secrets of the town but also whatever dangers lay hidden in the woods? Clara stood on the edge of uncertainty, acutely aware that their search for truth could lead them to dark places that might change their lives forever. The children's faces were pale in the fading light, their excitement tempered by the weight of the moment. Clara didn't know if it was the thrill of the unknown or an instinctual fear that made her shiver as she watched the mysterious group. "Lead the way, Tommy," Mark encouraged the boy who had suddenly seemed so much taller than she remembered. There was a bravery in those kids, a recklessness born from innocence. The weight of their mission hung heavy in the air, but Clara felt something else beneath it, a flicker of hope battling against the gloom. Tommy took a deep breath, cleared his throat and started toward the tree line, his small figure illuminated by the last glimmers of twilight. "It's this way," he beckoned, glancing back at the adults with determination that calmed Clara's racing heart. "Stay close," Clara shouted, and she felt the grip of her daughter's hand in her own grow tighter in response. The crowd moved as a single unit, children and parents intertwined, stepping into the shadows where their fears mingled with memories. As they ventured deeper into the woods, Clara stole glances at the children leading the way. Each one wore an expression marked by a curious mixture of fear and bravery. What had drawn them here? What secrets were buried deep in the earth beneath their feet? The trees known to Clara transformed into sentinels of uncertainty, their gnarled branches twisting into shapes that resembled arms beckoning them forward, or perhaps warning them away. Each step felt heavy, weighed down by the past and the ache of lingering questions. They followed the trail until they reached an old clearing. Clara recognized the space instantly, the spot where she and her friends used to play as children. It was now a ghostly echo of laughter and innocence, a hidden graveyard of childhood memories. In the center stood a dilapidated structure, the remnants of what had once been a small house, overtaken by vines and the earth's stubborn reclamation. A pulse of recognition shot through Clara. This was the old Walters property. The stories her parents whispered about it in afraid tones flickered through her mind. Lily tugged gently at Clara's arm. "Mom, what's wrong?" Clara crouched to meet her daughter's eyes, trying to steady her voice. "It's just we're okay. We're going to find answers." But even as she spoke, uncertainty gnawed at the edges of her resolve. "Can you feel it?" Lorraine said, stepping close. "It's like something is pulling us here." From behind the decaying walls, the girl with wild curls gestured. "We found a box by the old oak," she said breathlessly. "It had letters and photos. You need to see." The tension was palpable as Clara stepped forward. What had these children unearthed? What stories had been hidden like treasure beneath the soil? With every step toward the remains of the house, a cold wind swept through, raising goosebumps along Clara's arms. She could feel the weight of memories, both sweet and painful, hanging in the air. But just as the girl began to describe the contents of the box, a low growl echoed from the shadows once more. It resonated with the darkness enveloping them, a warning laced with malice. The children scattered, instinctively seeking safety behind their parents, as Clara's heart dropped. "What was that?" she whispered, panic growing. "I don't know," Mark replied, scanning the edges of the clearing. "But we need to stay together." Clara sensed it again, that palpable unease returning, thicker than before. In this moment of uncertainty, she wrestled with emotion, the fear for her daughter's safety simmering beneath the surface of her determination. Then she remembered the contents of the letters, the pain from the past. What if these revelations came with dangers unimagined? "Can we really do this?" Clara muttered, biting her lip as they huddled closer. "Can we face whatever is out there?" As the dreadful growl sounded again, this time closer, Clara felt a swell of courage. They might dig up the old stories, but what if the truths they unearthed uncovered more than they were ready to face? Something was out there, and it wasn't just the past. What would they find tonight that could change everything? "Get ready," she said low, "we might be in more danger than we thought." And as the wind howled through the branches, a shadow darted from the darkness, catching them off guard once more. The shadow flickered and vanished almost as quickly as it had appeared, leaving a chilling silence that swallowed the clearing whole. Clara's breath caught in her throat, and she instinctively pulled Lily closer, feeling her daughter's small body trembling against her. The metallic scent of fear was thick in the air, marking the group with an unshakable tension. Their eyes darted around, searching for any sign of impending danger. Clara's heart raced. She desperately needed to protect her daughter, to shield her from whatever forces lingered in the darkness. "Everyone, quiet," Mark said, but his voice trembled slightly. The adults exchanged worried glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. The bravado of the children contrasted sharply with the adults' anxiety, as if the weight of generations hung between them, between the stories of the past and the peril of the present. "Tommy," Clara called softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "Do you think it's safe to go check that box?" Tommy hesitated, glancing back at the wall of darkness behind them. I think we should," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. It was brave, yet Clara could see the uncertainty etched into his small face. "Okay then," she said, forcing a confident nod. "Let's stick together, all right? No one goes off on their own." She looked around at the kids, trying to rally them. "Let us find out what's in that box." They edged closer to the ruins, senses heightened, each sound magnified: the rustles of leaves, the soft crunch of twigs underfoot, the distant croak of a frog. The house loomed like a ghost of their childhood, and Clara felt a strange mix of nostalgia and fear envelop her. "Here it is," the girl with curly hair said, pointing to where the old oak tree stood, its roots tangled like fingers clawing at the earth. Clara could feel the weight of their past there, cycles of stories that seemed to breathe under their feet. The box, half buried among the roots, awaited their exploration. Her heart thudded in rhythm with the pulse of her childhood memories. As the children knelt and started to dig around the box, Clara noticed the wild girl glancing around nervously. What if that was just a stray animal? She whispered, but there was a quiver in her voice that betrayed her. "What if it's more?" Lorraine whispered, pulling close to Clara's side. "What if it was a warning? Something could be shifting in these woods." Clara glanced at her, anger building inside her. "Maybe we shouldn't entertain those thoughts right now," she said tightly. "We need to focus on what we came for." But Lorraine shrugged. "You can't blame me for wondering," she retorted. "The stories are real. We've heard them." Before Clara could respond, Tommy triumphantly tossed aside a handful of dirt and grinned. "Found it." The box revealed itself, dusty but intact. It was small, a simple wooden chest bound with rusting hinges. Clara's breath hitched. She reached down to help pull it free. As soon as she grasped it, a shiver raced through her. "Will you open it?" Lily asked, her wide eyes glimmering with interest and fear, as she sensed the tension in the air. "No, wait," said Mark. "Let us be careful. We don't know what's inside, and whatever that noise was, we don't want to attract attention." But Clara was already lifting the lid, driven by a force she couldn't explain. The creaking of the hinges echoed like a voice calling out from long ago. Inside lay old photographs and faded letters, the ink blurred but the names unmistakable, her childhood friends, her old neighborhood. Each item hinted at lives intertwined with her own. "That's my dad," a girl cried, pointing at one of the pictures. The group crowded closer to the box, leaning into the pulse of the moment. Clara's heart raced, but a different feeling crept in, igniting hope, a hope that maybe these pieces from the past could unveil not just memories, but truths that would set them free. Just then, the growl erupted again, louder this time, resonating through the clearing like a thunderclap. Clara's heart sank as the ground beneath them vibrated with dread. "Everyone! Back!" she shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. The children instinctively obeyed, rushed to hide behind their parents once more, their eagerness replaced by stark fear. In that pulse of chaos, Clara realized with chilling clarity that whatever truths they sought, the night was watching, and perhaps something deeper lay entwined with the haunting story of the Walters property. What's really out there? She wondered, her mind racing. Would the answers they were searching for expose more than they were ready to handle, and would that growl mean the end of everything they loved? As the noise faded, replaced with a haunting silence, a sense of urgency washed over her. Would they ever find peace again? And as the last light of day melted into darkness, Clara knew that they needed to uncover not just the box's contents but the very shadows clinging to them before it was too late. What lay ahead could change everything they thought they knew. Clara's heart pounded in her chest as silence blanketed the clearing, every child's breath hitching in unison. She tightened her grip on Lily, who pressed against her, wide-eyed and clinging with the desperation only a child can muster in fright. The box sat open in front of them, a gateway to the past, teetering precariously between memory and nightmare. "What should we do?" Tommy's voice trembled as he wrung his hands anxiously. He was still crouched next to the box, eyes flitting between the photographs and the shadows encroaching all around them. "Stay close," Clara said, her voice steadying. "Let us grab what we can and get back to the others." As if in response to her command, a loud rustling erupted from the underbrush nearby, forcing the entire group to jump. Clara's gaze shot towards the noise, and she felt Lily flinch against her side. Mark took a step forward, scanning the trees at the edge of the clearing, determination etched on his face. "Could it be an animal?" Lorraine whispered, her usual bravado replaced by fear. The bravado that adorned the children's faces moments ago was now gone, and Clara could see doubt creeping into their hearts. Mark shook his head. "I don't think so. I've spent enough time in these woods to know that whatever that is, it doesn't belong here." Tommy's gaze shifted back to the box. "Maybe we should just take the pictures and letters. These are important, right?" His innocent suggestion, though practical, echoed loudly against the backdrop of the gathering darkness. Before Clara could respond, the growl erupted again, a low, menacing rumble that resonated through their bones and shook the very ground they stood upon. It felt primal, almost alive, and instinctively, Clara stepped back, pulling Lily closer. "Go!" she shouted, urgency spilling from her lips. "Grab whatever you can." Panic ignited, and the children began hurriedly stuffing crumpled photographs and letters into their small backpacks, their hands trembling as they worked, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She caught movement from the corner of her eye, a shadow darting just outside the perimeter of their makeshift circle. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay focused. "Is everyone okay?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper as she saw each child nod stiffly, their eyes wide with terror, still darting around at every sound. With shaking hands, Clara pulled a letter from the box. The ink was smudged, but she could make out familiar handwriting, a name she had once adored, a friend from a life long gone. The flood of memories rushed through her. It was a longing and a pain all at once. As the last few items disappeared into the bags, Mark looked back at the shadows, fear dancing in his eyes. The growls are getting closer. We have to move now. But Clara hesitated. There was something more here, a sense of connection in her hands that promised answers. Wait. She insisted, her heart at war with her mind. These could lead us to the truth. What if it's all connected? No sooner had she spoken when a figure shifted in the shadows. Clara's breath hitched. Was it the wind, or was someone watching them? Then, just as she was about to take another step toward the possibility of discovering more, the ground quaked beneath them. She stumbled, but not before seeing the unmistakable shape of a creature lurking in the darkness, eyes glimmering like two shards of cold steel. Everybody run! She screamed, grabbing Lily and urging the others to follow her, and as they took off into the woods, Clara's heart hammered against the fear of the night. What were they running from, and what were they heading towards? But one truth shimmered above the rest: tonight was just the beginning. The past was being unearthed, and with it, secrets buried deep would soon claw their way to the surface. Are we safe? Lily whispered, glancing over her shoulder. Clara took a shaky breath. I don't know yet, sweetheart. But we can't look back now. With urgency fueling their escape, she knew they had no choice but to confront whatever shadow haunted them. But when would they find answers, and at what cost? As the scent of damp earth mixed with the thrill of adrenaline, Clara felt the shadows close in, the unknown winking at them with treachery. This time, they had to confront the truth buried in their own history, whatever it might unleash. Branches whipped against Clara's face as she sprinted through the dense foliage. The darkness enveloped them, branches crackling like the teeth of whatever had followed them. Each heartbeat felt like thunder in her ears, and she could feel her pulse matching the rhythm of her steps. Keep going, she urged, not daring to glance back. Lily was panting heavily beside her, clinging to Clara's hand with all her strength. What was that? She gasped, her fear palpable. Clara's heart ached with a blend of fear for her daughter's safety and a protective instinct as powerful as a storm. I don't know, honey, but we have to get to the cabin. Clara shouted over her shoulder, her voice hoarse. The thought of the small wooden structure near the lake had become their beacon of hope, a refuge from the fear that chased them. The growl erupted again, closer this time, vibrating through the air like an ominous song. Mark led the way, his strong frame weaving expertly through the thick trees. This way, follow me. He commanded, his voice cutting through the panic. The others were right behind, every child moving with the instinct to survive. Suddenly, Lorraine stumbled, falling to her knees. I can't keep going, she cried out, despair in her voice. Clara's instincts kicked in, and she skidded to a halt, turning back to help her friend. Come on, Lorraine. We can't stop. She urged, kneeling beside her friend. You can do this. We're almost there. There was a flicker of determination in Lorraine's eyes as Clara extended a hand to her. Together, then. With a burst of resolve, they rose to their feet, interlocking arms, and raced after the boys. The narrowing path felt claustrophobic. Clara could hear the snapping of twigs, echoing a sinister promise of danger. As they tore through the underbrush, the shadows loomed larger, flickering at the edges of her vision like a bad dream desperately trying to consume them. Tommy's voice came soft and pained behind them. What if it catches us? His small words echoed Clara's own fears. It looked like it was waiting. His words hung in the air, a chilling confirmation of their growing dread. It won't catch us, Clara stated, a fierce determination rising within her. Not if we stick together. She didn't believe it herself, but her words propelled them onward, a shield against the unknown. Finally, They broke free from the trees, and the cabin appeared, silhouetted against the blended backdrop of sky and stars. The sight filled her with both relief and an inexplicable dread. They needed to reach it, but how could they be safe inside if something menacing was lurking outside? Clara led the pack toward the door, heart racing, stomach churning. As she reached for the worn handle, her fingers trembled. They would have to face whatever shadows waited within, just as they had faced the oppressive darkness outside. On 3, Mark whispered, positioning himself to kick the door open. 1, 2. Their breaths hitched. 3. The door flew open with a creak that sounded like a warning bell, and they stumbled inside, collapsing against one another in a tangle of limbs and terror, but silence greeted them. Stillness enveloped the cabin as if it had been waiting for them, holding its breath. Clara's heart still raced, but now it was met with the echoes of their worn-out breaths. It's okay," she managed, looking into the anxious faces of the children. "We're safe here, I think." But even as she spoke, she could feel a gnawing doubt settle over her like a shroud. Then, suddenly, the quiet was broken by a thud from somewhere deep inside the cabin. Clara's stomach lurched. What was that? She gasped, feeling instinctual fear twist her insides. Maybe it's just the wind? Lorraine offered weakly, but they could all hear it, the unyielding sound, resonating with anticipation, urging them to explore. "Let us check it out," Mark suggested, bravely stepping further inside. It could be nothing, but deep down, Clara knew the truth. Sometimes, curiosity could reveal more than they bargained for. With her heart in her throat, she followed him, feeling a weight of uncertainty settle around her like the very darkness they had just escaped. What were they about to uncover in that eerie stillness? And would they ever truly be free from the shadows that haunted them? Clara squared her shoulders, the chill of fear creeping along her spine as she stepped further into the dim cabin. Moonlight spilled through cracked windows, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the wooden walls. Every creak of the floorboard seemed to echo with untold stories, warning her that stepping into the unknown wasn't just about seeking answers, it was also about confronting fears they had all buried deep. "Stay close, everyone," she breathed, glancing back at Lily, who clung quietly to her side, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Mark had moved ahead, his expression a mix of determination and trepidation. "What was that sound?" Tommy asked, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with lingering anxiety. Clara could barely hear Mark's voice as he moved into the next room. "Let us check the back." It sounded like it came from, but before he could finish, the thud sounded again, this time more insistent. Clara's heart raced. Something was inside, and they had unknowingly walked straight into its territory. "I'm scared," Lily whispered, her little hand shaking in Clara's grasp. Clara knelt down, forcing herself to make eye contact with her daughter. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said softly. "Whatever it is, we're here together." She tightened her grip, drawing strength from her own promise. As they moved cautiously, banding together, Clara felt an unusual pull toward the back of the cabin. It was as if something beckoned her, urging her to dare the danger. With every step, the air felt thicker, vibrant with energy, unsettling yet undeniably magnetic. Suddenly, Lorraine gasped, pointing at a pile of old boxes in the corner that had been covered with thin sheets of dust. "Look!" she exclaimed, her voice a mix of excitement and dread. "Those could be important." The group lingered at the threshold of decision, their collective breath held tight. This could be the very key they needed to uncover the truth about the Walters property, and even Lily's affliction. Clara took a trembling breath and prompted Mark. "Let us open them." The group stepped forward, their curiosity outweighing the dread. As they pulled open the dusty boxes, a flurry of fragile papers, photographs, and decaying artifacts spilled out. Each item held the weight of stories long forgotten, whispers from a time that Maplewood had chosen to ignore, and then it happened. From within the deepest shadows of the cabin, a figure emerged, tall, but fearsome in the unsettling darkness. Time seemed to freeze as the crowd froze, every heart racing with the uncertainty of what lay before them. Then, it stepped into the light. The creature was no monster but a large, scruffy dog. Its soulful eyes were surprisingly tender as it stood before them, panting gently. Clara realized with profound relief that it was just another lost soul. Much like Max had once been a protector in a time of chaos. The kids burst into relieved laughter, breaking the tension like sunlight after a storm. Max, who had been waiting quietly outside, bounded toward his newfound friend, the two dogs meeting in a moment of instinctive recognition. It was as if the danger had evaporated. The crowd shared nervous giggles, but just then, Lorraine lifted a photograph, her maelstrom of emotions spilling over. This is my grandfather," she exclaimed, pointing at a faded figure who was unmistakably familiar. The revelation surged through them, igniting memories long tucked away but never truly forgotten, and then, a gentle nudge of urgency tugged at Clara. As she glanced at the boxes, she understood. These photos, they have stories to tell about our community, about our past. She pointed to the distinctive creek outlined in one of the photographs. "Look! That's the site where Lily found her wildflowers." "Yes," Mark added, excitement bleeding through his earlier anxiety. "This connects everyone. What's buried here isn't just pain, it's our history, our richness." The fire of determination resurfaced, igniting hope amidst the wreckage of fear. In that moment, they were no longer a cluster of individuals bound by doubt. They emerged as a team, facing their collective shadows. Clara could almost feel the city rallying behind them as pieces of the past began to fit together, shedding light on how interconnected they truly were. As they rummaged through old letters and maps, the legacy of the town breathed again. Each revealed truth connected their hearts. Laughter mingled with the poignant tales of loss that once haunted their streets. They turned toward the open door, the chilling growls of the previous night washed away by a sense of camaraderie. "Whatever we face outside, we will overcome it together," Clara declared, and the crowd nodded. A whole heart formed in a community once fractured by fear. United, they headed out into the night once more, ready to confront whatever shadows still lurked in Maplewood. With hope lighting the way, they began their march to reclaim not just the innocence of their past, but also to forge a brighter, unified future for Lily and for each other. As they stepped outside, the fresh winds of change washed over them, intertwining with the whispers of history. A new Maplewood, prepared at last to face the future. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to never miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending below. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.